Listen, I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action, I'm ready to go.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you, Harry, and good morning to our listening audience and Facebook audience. And actually, folks, people will listen to the show afterwards. And so it's every time we do a show, the desire is to really convey that we're making a historical statement, a historical impact. So whether you listen today on Friday, February 26th at 11 o'clock, whether you listen in the future, what we have to say is really important. And quite frankly, this COVID global war that we're involved with, I'm suggesting everybody on the panel that same way we like to think about AD and BC, before Christ and after Christ. I'm suggesting that we may be in a COVID period where people will talk about pre-COVID, before COVID, and after COVID in terms of impact on civilization, but not to get too metaphorical. Today, I'm really glad to have Diamond Powell on the show with us, Sylvia Cooper, Maurice Williams, and Harvey Fair, and Germano, Kimbro as well, and others. But we really want to, this is a global war that we're involved with. If you're a human being or consider yourself to be a human being on the planet, you have been enlisted in this COVID war. And as we know, for wars, there's already been casualties. And Diamond Powell is going to kick us off on I'm calling you Diamond a COVID warrior, and Harvey, you're a COVID warrior also. And so you guys are veterans. You know, you've earned your Purple Hearts. And I'm halfway joking, but I'm really more serious about that fact, that this is a crisis that we're involved with. So Diamond, kind of share with us a little bit about what you've been enduring, what you're surviving, some kind of impacts of your circumstance. And then Sylvia Cooper and Germano Kimbro will talk about their COVID crisis counseling, crisis counseling, because we know that there are lingering effects, either medical effects or psychological effects. There are effects after this situation. After you're fighting a war, you have scars. So Sylvia and Germano will share with us how they're kind of helping people heal those scars. And I've asked Maurice Williams to join us also. Maurice has been a community activist, a community worker, public health worker before there was the term, concerned with people's health and survival for almost 2 decades. So Diamond, kick us off, and again, welcome. And I know you work a few jobs. I'm not sure if you're Jamaican, but so they say the Jamaicans work a few jobs, but I won't go there. I know I'm going to get blasted for that. but good morning, and so let's hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. How you all doing? I pray that everybody is well, healthy. This COVID thing is like, this COVID thing has been like a nightmare for me personally. Basically, I got, in the beginning, I was working with an educator, a man with several degrees, and he was just talking nonsense about COVID was a white person's disease. Mm-hmm. And he was like spreading it around like only white people will get COVID. It won't affect black people. And then I said, well, what about the basketball player? He was like, oh, he's mixed. So, he's going to get it because he has white, his mother's white. So he's going to get it. And then like 2 weeks later, then when I was listening to a good friend of mine, he was doing his internet show, and they were making like mockery of like, we don't know any black people that had COVID. And I just happened to come down with the symptoms. I was like, yo, man, I said, yo, you know me. I said, everybody knows me. I said, I'm home with 104. Like my fever went up that night from like 100 to 104. And I said, yo, it's March 14th. And I'm in the house with the windows open on the second floor. And my fever is a 104. So they got serious. So the next day I called my doctor, and he was like, yo, do me a favor. He's like, yo, you quarantine, go upstairs. He said, if you get worse, and he said, don't go to the hospital, because if you go to the hospital, you're going to die because they don't know how to treat you. Mm-hmm. So, after that experience, I spent March and April in the house quarantined, fever of 104. for like 15 days. My wife got it for, she's one of them young whippersnappers, so she got it for 2 days. She was sick. She had a headache one day, slept one day, then she was right back. The women, they say the women is stronger than the men anyway when it comes to sickness. Sylvia, don't be loud.
Telling Sylvia that a little earlier.
Yeah, but so basically what happened is, COVID has been an eye opener for me. I've lost a job. They won't say it's COVID, but I know it's COVID related. But I lost a lot. I lost friends from the disease, and I also lost friends because I spoke openly when I did my thing about COVID on Facebook, and then when I went on the Wave Independent in the article, a lot of people shied away from me. I had people accusing me of knowingly saying that I knowingly had COVID, and I went and I spreaded it to people. I was purposely trying to get people sick. It was just a lot of things, and then then that plays on the psychological, because now I'm at a place where, I'm a ripe 25-year-old black male, so now I'm dealing with I developed lung damage. I have asthma. I have to take a pump. I still have the effects of COVID. My wife gets mad at me, my kids, because I get tested weekly. I go to every free site and go get tested once a week just to make sure that I'm negative, because I still have, at times, I still have the chest aches. I still have the cough. Sometimes I feel like I have like fever. As you know, I DJ and I have phobias. Like after I do an event, even if it's like 10 people, at the end of the night, I come home, I shower every night, and I feel like I've been exposed to COVID again. I'm sick again. I work in all places. I work in the hospital, and I see the results of COVID all the time. And then I come home again, I'm showering. I'm thinking when I wake up in the morning, like this morning, I woke up, I had chest pains, headache. I had every COVID symptom, but I'm negative. So, and then I got the vaccine, and then the first shot was chills. The second shot gave me, I had all the COVID symptoms. Like I was sick, like I had COVID for a complete 24 hours. Like I went to work and they sent me home because I had a fever of 104, 103. Like I was almost off the, like, how they scan you and they was like, well, this thing ain't even trying to really read what you have. So that's how COVID has impacted my life. It has brought a lot of negative, a lot of psychological. All I think about is death. Death is crazy. Like all I think about is just dying and death. Death is always in the back of my mind. Like I could just die off of this. You know what I mean? But that's just me. Let's just sum it up.
Well, I can't tell you how to feel, but from what I heard, it's not just you, and that's the reason for this show, for people not to feel isolated or by themselves, or not willing to able to reach out. So I really deeply appreciate what you talked about. When you were just talking, I just saw a movie in my mind. Sylvia and Mo and Germano, I just saw that whole script in my mind, and this movie is continuing. I want to jump to Sylvia and Germano. Have you guys respond a little bit, because again, it's people such as that we know Diamond, but there are others that are out there that don't know about the COVID-19 crisis counselors that are available. We're going to need this. We're going to need this therapy. We're going to need this help. We're going to need this hand holding, this heart holding, and who knows for how long. But again, that's what the Black existence in this North American continent has been all about. So, and Harvey, then I'll come back to you, and Maurice, etc. But Sylvia, let's start off with you in terms of just hearing Diamond's testimony. What does that say to you in terms of what the mission and passion of the COVID crisis counselors are, and how you are embodying it and replicating it?
Well, first, Tom, thank you for having us on. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us this platform to talk about the work. And I do want to say to my brothers on the piano, I know some of you, and just thank God that you're doing well and that you are holding on. Diamond, your testimony, I call it testimony, or your story, is definitely not unusual in what we've heard in our work. So I'm going to begin by saying that we are COVID crisis counselors for the Ministerial Health Fellowship Advocacy Coalition. Yes, it is a long title. It is derived out of the city of Middletown, Connecticut. The executive is Reverend Robin Anderson. It is a faith-based nonprofit organization that hosts leaders from the faith-based organizations and community organizations and focuses on the disparities of health, especially in our Black and Brown communities. So during that time, they sought out help from FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, and DEMIS, which is the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They had a grant and they wanted to know how people in our Black and Brown communities were doing during the pandemic. So this grant affords us to go out in the Fairfield County, Hartford County, the Middletown County, and New Britain, as well as the greater New Haven area, to interview people, have encounters with them to figure out how they're doing during the pandemic. Now, here's the catch. If you will indulge me for a minute.
Sure.
Black and Brown communities always lived in pandemics.
Yes.
People in substance abuse lived in an epidemic. We have resilience. We live in areas where there's crime, there's poverty. And so we are always on the edge and we are survivors. But here comes this Black monster that nobody can see. It has impacted and affected the entire world and now has landed in our communities. And so we find ourselves, Germano and I, when we interview folks, is we have to educate and say, yes, what you're feeling is absolutely correct. You are impacted by a pandemic. We interview, we do presentations such as this. We interview people in the diverse demographics and geographical areas in our area to ask them questions about how you're doing. And for me, the biggest thing for me is asking people, do you need services? And when they conversate with you and they don't realize how much resources is in our community. People are suffering in silence. They're suffering in silence.
Elaborate on a little bit about that in terms of that.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically we're interviewing someone and they're backed up in their utilities or their rent. And they're saying that there is help out there for you and resources for you to get assistance so you don't feel like, oh my God, I've been impacted by COVID. I lost my job. My unemployment hasn't come through, and afraid that the landlord is going to kick them out. Things like, grandparents who are caring for their grandchildren, and which is really a high demand in our community, while parents have to go out and work, virtual learning, and not having the proper tools in order for children to have those necessities so that they can do hyper learning from home. And so just connecting them to those resources, or something like Diamond described in his words a few minutes ago, isolation, just emotional distress of thinking, am I going to get this again? The first wave of folks who were impacted by COVID, there are lasting impacts of health and neurology disorders and all kinds of things that the side effects from this horrible virus brought onto people. And so just having those conversations, saying, you know what, why don't you connect with your primary care physician and have them, if you can, do a referral for a specialist. And you have a right. You have a right because you matter. And so just those kinds of things, the elderly population, being able to get them connected virtually to their appointments and helping them understand how to navigate through this pandemic. So it's an opportunity for us to connect people to resources, have these conversations about what you're feeling is real. And then in our community, because we know that behavioral health and mental health is something we don't talk about a lot, is the fact that maybe you want to consider seeing someone, speaking to someone, because what you've been through is really real. Right. And then making sure that we know that resources that come to our state from the federal government, that information goes out to our community members to let them know there's help for you and we can connect you to those resources.
And Germano, before we come to you and Harvey, just Sylvia, throw out the plug about how people can kind of be in touch if someone's listening and feels the passion and the sincerity of Diamond and what you just mentioned. How can they access your services?
You can access our services two different ways. We are I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys, but for those people who are listening, you can contact us via email. Our email addresses, I'm going to put them in so Germano, when he's speaking, he can get them out. We also have our cell phone numbers. As he begins to talk about the work that we do, I'm going to also put the information in the chat, and then Germano can get that out to everyone.
Great. And Germano, I guess before I come to you, Harvey, let me bring you in a little bit, because again, this show is all about you and Diamond and Maurice, who also has a Purple Heart. Sometimes I give him a gold badge or put a gold sticker on his forehead, depending on what kind of personality he's in at the moment. That's for you, Mr. Maurice Williams. So brighten up. It's a good day. But Harvey, you've had a chance to kind of work with, I believe, with Germano. I shouldn't say work, but to kind of commune, to share some emotional thoughts, brother to brother, in terms of your COVID experience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was very important to be able to talk to the COVID counselors, because I really didn't know what was going on. Like I said, when I talked the last time, I went through all of these different symptoms, and I was actually in between a place of life and death where I didn't know if I was going to survive. The support that Germano and Sylvia gave was very important, because, for example, they told me how important it was to speak with my doctor and find out whether or not I needed to be examined for neurological damage. I had not thought about that. As Sylvia just said, about the resources in the community that can help you out with food or your rent, things of that nature. And after talking with them, it helped me to try to clear in my mind what I needed to really get into. And so some of the stuff that I'm dealing with now is hypervigilant. Like, I'm really careful about having my mask on, sanitizing my hands all the time, maybe taking something with me if I'm gonna get in the elevator to push buttons and things like that. And I also, at this point, going through a lot of anger for people who don't take the COVID-19 serious. Like, they'll say stuff like Trump was pumping around that it's a hoax. And as other people have talked about, put stress on relationships and the economic difficulties. So having the COVID counselors around to steer me through, guide me towards resources was very important. And as Diamond said, I'm still, like, right now having this conversation, it feels like there's some type of blockage in my lungs, and it comes across as like a heart palpitation. So, and to be honest too, and I think I mentioned this to Germano, it's actually traumatizing to even talk about it, because having been sick is traumatizing. And when you discuss it, it almost, you got to relive it. So as Diamond was saying earlier, psychological impacts and effects, and that requires, to go seek therapy and counseling.
Yes.
And in the communities of people of color, we sort of like take that as being stigmatized. Oh, I had to go see a counselor. But all of that stuff is very important. And as Diamond said, it's not a joke.
And Germano, just before I come to you, Simon, I saw you shaking your head there, just in terms of when Harvey was mentioning that the heart sensations.
Yeah, well, like I said, I work in a hospital, right? So imagine I have to go to a COVID floor. The whole entire floor, everyone is COVID positive. So my first experience was with Lifestar. I had to walk Lifestar down, and I literally had what they call at the hospital COVID PTSD. Like, I literally broke out in a cold sweat. Like, my uniform shirt was soaking wet. I was standing against the wall, and the young lady who's a nurse was like, yo, do me a favor. Stand in the corner, just breathe. She said, just keep breathing. She said, what you're having a mental reaction to seeing all these people on ventilators, seeing all these people with COVID, and she said, and you're having flashbacks of when you were sick. So she was like, I could tell you had COVID just by your reaction, because this is the reaction of a lot of people who take it serious. And there's a lot of people who don't take it serious. So she was like, sit there, breathe, take this paper towel, wipe your face, breathe, just keep breathing, and not to take the time up. But like I tell people, this is one of the wildest experiences I had working in the hospital. I wheel people into the emergency room in a wheelchair. And then 3 days later, I'm wheeling the same person I wheeled into the ER. I'm wheeling them to the funeral with the funeral director out to I guess, I don't know, I'm old school. Is it still a hearse? I'm wheeling them to the hearse. So imagine I walk a person in, they breathing, and they saying, I don't feel good. I'm having chest pains. I'm shortness of breath. Then 3 to 5 days later, I'm on the other side, walking them out, helping the funeral director put them onto the cart and pushing them into the hearse. And I'm like, yo, I just wheeled this person in. So that's just the psychological. That's when I talk about the death and people don't take it serious. Because I had a guy tell me one time I was DJing a party. He took my mask off. I said, yo, bro, what are you doing? He talking about, yo, don't let the white man in the government make you think that this is something. It's nothing but a cold. You only had a cold for 30 days. It was just a cold. You had a cold before, and the little metal strip is 5G. They trying to infiltrate your brain. I told the dude, yo, get away from me. Don't ever talk to me again, because I didn't realize that you was that dumb. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, when you have COVID, see, people that never had COVID, these are the people that talk stupid. People who have never been sick are the people that had a little brush with COVID. Those are the ones that talk stupid to you and tell you, oh man, it was nothing. But as my boy Mo Flea, because I was calling Mo Flea, I was worried about my boy Mo Flea. They hit me and they told me about my boy Mo. And we was like, he don't know, but we was all in communication every day. Like, it's a group of DJs. He not even a DJ, but we was just like checking on him daily. And it was just like, this is like serious, because we all in the same age group. Tom, you might be a little younger than us, but we all in the same.
Very much younger.
You know, but just think about it. People are really like, I've talked to a person on Monday and they're going on Tuesday. So I just, I'm sorry. Let me fall back. Let me fall back. I got to call services for this conversation.
This is what it's all about. And again, we're going to do a recap in another show in April, because this is the only news. I mean, this is the only international news, economic news, business news, domestic news, family news, you name it, what you consider news to be. This is the only news. It affects all of us in so many ways. This is the only church news. This is the only corporate news. And Germano, I keep on saying I'm going to come to you, but I got to just weave in Mo. When you said Mo Fleece, Diamond, I know of Maurice Williams. Is that the same? Was that is Maurice his slave name, or is Mo Fleece? Is that the gentleman that's smiling there? Mr. Williams, Sir Williams, Esquire.
Cowboy fan. I was gonna call him Cowboy fan, but I didn't want to do that because he get emotional when I bring up his Cowboys.
So Mr. Mo, please, Maurice Williams, share a little bit with Germano.
Well, that's my nickname, and funny that we speak on that, because a dear friend of mine gave me that nickname, and the reason for the nickname was that, of course, Maurice, you would get Mo from that, but the flea part came from the thought of I don't stay still. I'm always on the move. And so it still speaks to that point even today that Diamond and others are speaking about, is that the misconception of so many things that are happening with COVID, and that we all can only basically do one thing, is to protect ourselves, which helps us to protect others and the community. And so I even get criticism now. People say, oh, you're still out and about, and you almost died, you should be in the house. And the work has to continue. And I'm not saying it's always I'm out for business purposes. Yes, I do socialize and like to continue to socialize with my community. But it's always with, as Diamond said, with your mask on, still 6 feet away from individuals. You're still going to have to live life. This is something that we're learning as we go, of what are some of the things that help to continue to protect us, which is, of course, our mask and our 6 feet. And now that we're on the discussion and coming to the discussion of vaccines, and we'll leave that topic as the different thoughts that people have on that. But I just want people to realize that my strong belief, my strong faith, my thankfulness to those who prayed for me and those who understood that this was serious. Just like Diamond said, I mean, I've been a club promoter for the last 20 years in my life, so I know all the DJs, I know everybody. So it was just heart-wrenching to know that, you know, the pain that not only you brought upon your personal family, but your local community who was very worried. And we just want individuals to be aware of what it's all about. And we give Tom a lot of credit because he's doing a dual role. The Monday shows, if you listen to the Monday shows, is probably more of the professional individuals that are in the medical field and are taking leadership at the university and the hospital. And when he talked to me about the Friday shows, I thought what we could do there and what we're doing now is the real talk, where you see the real citizens and the residents that have been affected personally by this pandemic, and talk about those things that Sylvia and Germano are helping individuals to realize, which are the resources that are needed. I mean, this economic impact that COVID has had on our community, with people losing their jobs, can't pay for their mortgages and their rents. This is something that you don't see talked about a lot on the CNN news and Channel 8 news that affects Black and Brown communities so much every day. And so I'm just happy that we're having a platform at this time to be able to do that.
Tremendous, tremendous. Germano, Mr. Kimbro.
Hey, good morning, Tom. How you doing?
Let's hear from you. You've been a warrior on the battlefield before. Actually, in terms of just the experience of being Black in America, so you've had a long journey there. I don't need to hear your total story today, but I do need to hear how this latest occupation, passion, job, and commitment that you had to being a COVID crisis counselor.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And again, thank you and everybody on the panel. You know, I to bring you greetings from the leadership of the Ministry of Health Fellowship, Reverend Robin Anderson, who had the vision to address health disparities in the Black community. And, you know, this work is really important, you know, to our survival. And I think one of our strengths is also could possibly our weakness is the resilience that we have as a people. And that's one of the things that Sylvia and I have recognized early in this project, is that, you know, for Black and Brown people that have come from so many crises and issues adversely affecting our people, we're just conditioned to making the adjustments. And we do that so naturally that we don't always take in the full impact of what we're facing sometimes. We just continue to kind of evolve. And so, like, when I seen Mo and Diamond, you know, it was like, it hit really hard because, you know, Diamond and I worked together in the church, you know, and so when I seen his story, you know, and I think one of the things that's a part of who I am is, you know, is just empathy and compassion. And so, and just realizing how fragile life could be, you know, I mean, I took immediate concern with the issue of COVID-19, because I was driving Uber at the time, as well as, you know, doing some other things just to make ends meet. And so I used to, you know, do hand sanitizing and disinfecting in my vehicle just because I didn't want the regular flu. And so it was a regular practice of mine. And so when COVID hit, I just shut down and stopped driving, you know. And then when I see Maurice and then Diamond share their stories, you know, and just immediately going out, because, you know, Maurice and I had an opportunity to work together and do some research at Yale. In fact, you know, he had interviewed me, you know, as a part of a series of interviews for a research project. And I was a little disappointed that I didn't get the position. But in hindsight, I look as that, you know, it could have cost me a serious bout with COVID-19. So some things just aren't for us, you know. But, you know, later on down the line, you know, I was able to reconnect with Sylvia. You know, she reached out to me and asked me to be a part of this project. And, you know, her and I have a long history of human services, you know, within the greater New Haven area. And so, you know, it kind of made it a natural fit. Now, this whole pandemic is a new animal because, you know, breaking down some of the myth and the misinformation and some of the suspicions, you know, we have about the government. And like, I have a long history of that, you know, with my father's experience and just being a native New Havener, you know. And so but I'm just for some reason conditioned to always, jump in and deal with these sorts of issues. And so this is a new animal. So at the same time, I mean, it's 10 years. The experts say it takes you 10 years to become an expert at anything, and so as Sylvia and I become trained, and Maurice and people that are doing this work become trained, we're expected to implement, immediately. And sometimes, making those adjustments. So as we hear these stories, and hearing Diamond being preoccupied by thoughts of death, and dying, and Harvey, and Maurice talk about coming out of these dark places sometimes. And it's like, really empathizing and figuring out what do we have to do next, to connect and support, because it's really about solutions, right? I mean, we can dwell in the problem. We got to figure out what can we do about this. And sometimes we don't always want to take the medicine, just not just health, access to health. Part of the work that I did with the Fatherhood Initiative and work with men, even when they had insurance, was getting them, just to go to the doctor. Sometimes we're working 2 jobs and we just don't want to take time off, or we just tough it out. And we're athletes, Diamond plays sports like I did, and so we're conditioned to working with pain and injuries, and so like the research that I did in my undergrad said that, Black men access health 3 ways, and it was through the military, the emergency room, and through prisons. And so, if that's our access to healthcare, we're in a sad shape. And why this work that Reverend Robin Anderson is doing, because we're looking at health disparities. And then when it comes to mental health services, it's almost looked at as taboo, because we don't seek services until our conditions reach acute or chronic state. And so that's part of the issue. And so sometimes the subtle impact of mental health services, the isolation, the withdrawal, it creeps on us, and it's almost insidious how it overwhelms us, where a little stress turns into anxiety and then major depression, and this is compounded by a season where we have a lack of vitamin D and sunlight. And so, it's important to take in your surroundings, and how, your spouse, and how you're interacting, with your children and your neighbors, and people can be very short. And so all of these things have an impact on us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and seeking, some guidance and some navigation, through this process. Harvey alluded to, like being in the state where that, he was just kind of out of it. I heard his wife in the background, reminding him of stuff that he didn't even remember, because he was in the state of oblivion. But then, she reminded, you got to get up and move, and, because, you don't want your lungs to fill up, but then, back to nutrition, like I mentioned in the past, I mean, we can't, eat bad or not have the right nutrition, in our body, and expect a shot to be a silver bullet, and so I think that, the convenience in our communities don't give us the nutritional value that we need to be healthy to start with. And so it has to start with, good health.
Germano, let me just jump in just a second. I really appreciate what you've shared in terms of your particular journey, as well as where you're focused now. But share again some of the telephone numbers and how people can reach you, because this is radio and Facebook and SoundCloud and Apple News, but some people are just listening and don't have access to the chat. So what are some of the telephone numbers again, if someone's listening on the radio?
Well, this is a short show, but if anyone goes into the chat, we have some of the other crisis counselors from around the state that are online. They've put their information, their contact information in the chat. I've also put all of the counselors' crisis, their telephone numbers, the areas in which they cover, as well as their email. We have 3 new hirees that I don't have the information on. If they are on and they want to put their information in, but we'll have it by the time, Sylvia and I come and do a follow-up show. So,
okay, so for example, so let me just speak out for those who are on radio. Germano's number, if you want to write this down, Germano's number is 860-707-6646. My number is 860-803-0793, or you can reach me via cell phone 203-887-7989. My email address is scooper, MHF, M is in Mary, H is in Herman, F is in Frank, @gmail.com. And we can share that information for those listening on the radio who do not have access to the virtual Zoom radio show right now. One of the things I really want to plug in, Tom, really quick is because we are based out of the project is for the faith-based organizations, churches, and the churches which reside in the community. You know, people when people are spiritually sick, they go to the church. You know, big churches do outreach ministries for food pantries, soup kitchens, and clothing things. And so that's one of the way that we outreach is our members. Members are hurting, and the people in our community are hurting. And this project is based around the church and faith-based organizations, that we see the bleeding, we stop the bleeding so that people can be healed. And that's the resources, and connecting them, and just talking to an elderly person when nobody came by to see them. No one called, and it's like, you found me. You found me. And that's when we're able to apply pressure to the bleeding, and then we educate to make sure that people are informed. And this vaccine, I can tell you, we cannot mandate, nor can we tell you to take it, but I can tell you through training and going to webinars that you educate yourself. There are Black educators, doctors, and scientists out there. If you educate yourself, because you're not taking it just for yourself, you're taking it so that you don't impact other people. So this vaccine is not, it's not selfish. It's about you being able to protect your own people and your families and your community. And also, too, the fact that in the suburbs, people can quarantine in different rooms if you have 7 rooms. Well, what do we do in our Black community when you have 2 bedrooms and 6 people are living in the same space? So we try to educate people to make sure that they can identify someone in the house. If I've been exposed to it, or if I have the virus, then create a box of emergency needs and PPEs so that we can stop spreading it inside our own homes, because that's our reality, that we don't have spaces like suburban families do. And everybody in the world has been impacted. But the realization is we have to learn to be creative so that we can be safe within our own environments. And that's our message as well.
Absolutely. Maurice, kind of weigh in a little bit in terms of vaccinations and hesitancy and just the kind of mindset that people are still sometimes struggling with within their own decision-making process.
Well, as Sylvia just mentioned, it's the educational level and being able to get the information that you need to make, as I always say, a medical decision that's educated. And then, as I've been talking about for some time, is if that is not your choice, what is your alternative plan? When you're up against a virus that is deadly, it's just like if a killer or someone was in front of your house trying to attack you, you would have to have some plan of defense. And so for so many people who have the hesitancy, and I really don't want to get into the thought that now that Johnson & Johnson is going to be 1 shot versus 2 shots, which is going to create much more confusion. But the thought is going to be, is take your time to get the information. Individuals like Germano and Sylvia and this wonderful program they are part of can help you with that. As we're all talking about faith-based, take it to prayer. Please be aware that this virus, as Harvey, me, Diamond, and all can kill you. And we always have to give our condolences to the families in our community who have lost the fight, and realize that it is education, and we have to dispel some of these myths so that we realize that, yes, as Black and brown people, the experience with medicine has not always been positive, but we have to move forward and understand for the time being, this is a pandemic. We have never experienced this before. Those that are our age and just even a little older have never experienced a pandemic. So we must also work along with the medical community to see how we can come up out of this in a positive light.
Thanks. Mr. Fair, Harvey, any thoughts or comments on what you've heard so far?
Say that again, sir. I'm sorry.
Any thoughts or comments on what you've heard so far?
Yeah, you know, like everybody said, it's a very serious situation. You have to know what your resources are, but not only that, you have to be able to take advantage of it. And if it's okay, I just want to make a comment regarding my wife. On the first show that you did on COVID, I spoke about how my niece Sabrina came by and brought me a lot of fruits and juices and things like that to help nurse me back. I talked about how my nephew Frank, he and his wife Reese, came by with some supplies for me as far as fruits and foods and stuff like that. And I talked about how Germano came by with fruits and juices and made some soup for me. And one of the things I forgot to mention is my wife. And my wife Karen. I did mention her briefly and said that she basically nursed me back, but it was so traumatizing for her. And a lot of times we get caught up in how we went and we forget the spouse that was there. She actually was COVID positive as well. She didn't have it as bad as I did. And thank God for that, because who knows what would have happened to both of us if we had to go to a hospital or something. But my wife, like Germano said, he heard her telling stories about how I went through stuff that I don't even remember. You know, my lips turning purple, which I now realize it meant that I wasn't getting enough oxygen. How I would sit there and shaking, you know, till my wife thought I was going to have a stroke, you know, things of that nature. And, you know, seriously, just it's very difficult to talk about because people really don't understand that COVID will kill you. And not only will it kill you, I know people that got sick and multiple members in the same family died from COVID. And back to the COVID counselors, Germano, like last night, he shared with me a link with the NAACP, had a bunch of doctors on, a bunch of Black scientists talking about the vaccines. That being able to watch that show helped me overcome, not all the way yet, I'm not gonna lie, but it helped educate me and it helped me overcome the idea that I would never take this vaccine, because I saw that it's not necessarily just the government, it's not necessarily other people that, you know, people of color might have a problem with trusting. But when you see your own people, educated doctors and scientists, talking about the importance of the vaccine, that kind of helped me out. And if it wasn't for the COVID counselors, I probably wouldn't have that information.
Excellent, excellent. Diamond, I see you shaking your head, so weigh in again, because I didn't give you your fair time last time, so I want to be sure you're satisfied this time.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm like Harvey. You know, he only bought 1 cup of coffee to the Zoom. I'm gonna leave that alone.
I got you next time.
But no, like you said, like, you know, like with me, the same thing was with my wife. Like my wife was like, she held me down completely. Like she took care of everything. Like she told me I owe her big time. So for the whole year I was home, I've been like making her breakfast, dinner, trying to cater to her needs. I can't do everything like she do. But like I said, my wife was my support. Like, you know, she dealt with me at night, you know, 104 fever. People don't understand, like when you have 104 fever, you start hallucinating. So what happened with me was like at night, my mother has been deceased since 1997. I started having conversations with my mother. I started making plans like, you know what, Mom, I'm ready to come join you. I started just like being up all night because I couldn't go to sleep because my heart was racing. I took 2 capfuls of, my doctor told me to take NyQuil. And I took 2 caps of NyQuil and I couldn't go to sleep. So, and the crazy thing is, I used an excuse. I bought a $100 pair of sneakers. I blamed it on the fever. No, let me stop. No, I'm sorry. I'm a little silly. But the crazy thing was, this is how I knew it was real, is when my doctor, he's a he's an old Jewish guy from the Bronx. And he hit me with the conversation like this. He said, bruh. He didn't say government name. He didn't say patient. He hit me with on the Zoom like this. He said, bruh, this is serious. And he was like, this is what I'm gonna tell you. I would rather for you to stay in your house and die to be with your wife and kids so they can spend time with you than you to go to the hospital and they quarantine you, put you in a room, put you on a ventilator, and you die by yourself. So when a person is telling you that, and this is a medical doctor, he's not using no terms, like he's keeping it 100. He kept saying, bruh, like, I don't know what to do for you. So I remembered, I worked with a lady, Miss Story from Jackie Robinson. Many of y'all know her from the Board of Ed. She told me a long time ago that whenever you have chest congestion, eat lemons raw. Just start eating lemons raw. And I went and I had the Instacart thing. My coworker, one of my coworkers, she brought me like all the way from, she drove an hour to bring me like a bottle of Mucinex, ginger ale, lemons, anything I wanted. I have friends bringing me, dropping off soup and everything, because that's the only thing I could eat was soup. I can only taste soup. I couldn't taste nothing else. So what I did was, and I tell everybody who calls me, because for some reason, people were calling me from all over the country asking me about COVID and what could I do to help them. And I got overwhelmed with that. And my minister was like, well, God won't put it on you more than you're able to bear. This is your ministry. And I was like, this is a ministry that I don't want, because I don't want to hear people on the phone barely breathing. I don't want to try to help people, but I had to, because I just felt that it was my obligation. So what I did was I had lemons every day, oranges every day. My cousin brought me over, is it called a teddy pot, something you pour in your nose and you do all of this. She brought me like all this stuff. So what happened was, for like 30 days, I survived off of raw lemons, raw oranges, black, 100% black natural tea, peppermint teas. Like I was doing this every day, and I'm not a water drinker. So what happened is, because my wife, like I said, she's like you, Harvey. She don't touch nothing. She don't go nowhere. She stay in the house. Only time she go out is when she has to go out. So before this COVID thing started, we bought like 100 cases of water. Like she filled the whole garage up, and I kept clowning her. Like I kept saying, "Bad, this is ridiculous. Like this is ridiculous." She was like, "Nah, I'm prepared." So what happened was I started drinking water. I'm not a water drinker. I was drinking like 20 to 30 bottles of water a day, because I just couldn't, like, to go with the lemons and all of that stuff. And it was crazy, because those are the things that got me through. Like one of the things I talk about, people got to be careful too, is addiction. I was addicted to nasal spray, and I got addicted to Mucinex. Because Mucinex, whatever they put in Mucinex, that's where the government conspiracy always comes from, because Mucinex is one of the best things. Mucinex and Tylenol is one of the things they tell you to take, that my doctor told me to take. I was drinking the red bottle. I was on the side, I had them lined up on the side of the bed, and I would just lean over, take a little hit. Like, and then I realized after I had got better, I still was taking Mucinex. So I kind of that's another part that they don't talk about with COVID, is that you will get addicted to the pain medication, the Tylenol, because anytime you feel sick, you're going to do what? You're going to take a Tylenol because it says it breaks the fever. You feel hot, you're going to take a Tylenol. Then you feel like you got a cough, you're going to go grab and take a capful or 2 capfuls of Mucinex. And before you know it, you're addicted to pain medication, because they give you pain meds if you really, really are sick, and they give you the cold medicine. The next thing you know, you start looking for, you start drinking cold medicine. Okay. So those are just the things that, with COVID, those are some of the things. I had reached out to Chris Como, like me and him had the same symptoms, but he's a national figure, so they're not going to take it from me. They would take it from him. But I reached out, and I had a couple of news outlets reach out to me, and my wife said, "Don't do it," because of all the negative coming from the community. She was very disappointed and very hurt by the community that, and that's, I can go on and on and on about it, but I tell people, just be careful with the pain medicines. But if you feel like you got COVID, the lemons are the best thing. The lemons and the breathing exercises. You take 6 deep breaths, you hold them for 10 seconds, and on the 6th breath, you let out. You got to do it outside. You just cough as hard as you can. You just like let out a big loud cough as hard as you can. You keep doing that. And what it does is it breaks up the pockets, the COVID pockets in your lungs, in your chest. And the mucus, you'll see it it's a little disgusting, but the mucus is just flying out of your mouth. But it's all of it because you're exercising your lungs. And you got to go outside and walk. And I'm pretty sure Harvey and Mo, I know the first time I went outside, like I literally walked outside, the air felt strange. The world, I was breathing like, what is this? And my wife was like, "Babe, this is air you've been breathing for 50 years. I'm like, "Babe, this air is different." Like the air feels different. Like it's just a different feeling once you get this disease, I can't explain it. Like maybe Harvey, Mo, y'all can explain it, but I felt crazy the first time I went outside literally and took 10 steps and lost my breath. But the air quality, everything, it just felt different. That's all. And I thank you, Tom, for allowing me to be here. And I'm sorry for last.
I thank you for being with us. We have about 6 minutes, so let's kind of go around for 1 minute, kind of closing remarks for everybody. And no, I thank all of you. It's key, it's important, it's fundamental for us to reach out to one another, to hold each other's hands as best we can, and to seek out the information. Sylvia, let me kind of give you a chance for the last word, and I'll go to the rest of the crew.
So my last words is on Diamond's stories, Maurice and Harvey, you guys are amazing. I just want to say to people who are listening, please get tested for COVID. I have an underlying condition, and I had a fever of 103. I thought I had it because I have epilepsy, and that's public knowledge. I don't hold that back from folks. And I did not have COVID, but I ended up having a small seizure. So if you have underlying health conditions, it greaters the chance of your risk of being more sick if you have COVID. So if you're feeling some type of way, go get tested, because you need to be tested in order to have a baseline if you do or do not have it. And just be careful the people you're around. We are available for you. We will connect you to resources. We will talk to you. We want to help people get through this difficult time in life. And we will be in the community starting next week in the spring to get this information out to those folks who are definitely in need of resources. Thank you.
Maurice?
My only thing would be resources bring results. Utilize all the resources in your community to help you to fight against this deadly virus. And keep in mind that health disparities and health equity, we hear that so much. Only difference is it means that Black and brown people don't have the same resources as others. So we all have to work together, utilize services like Germano and Sylvia, their wonderful program they're in. Tom, listen to his Monday show as well as his Friday shows, because the Monday shows have more medical professionals on it, so that you can get that information too. And like I said, just continue to use the resources in your community to help us all fight against this deadly virus.
Germano?
Yeah, thank you. And so one of the slogans that we have with our program is that we're all in this together. So this is a two-way street. And although Sylvia and I have boots out on the ground, I mean, feel free to share the resources with us. I mean, one of our first charges was to gather and organize the resources in the community so that we can have them readily available, for the community. And so if you know the resource, I mean, I'm on Instagram as well as Facebook. We have Sylvia and I have a COVID-19 page. I mean, feel free to reach out to us. Again, I'm going to push health. Health is our wealth. I mean, and so it's really, Diamond talked about eating lemons and stuff like that. That's critically important. Just clearing the mucus out of your system if you do come in contact with COVID, or just keeping mucus out of your body, period, is important. And the testing, and not to be redundant, but get the good information. We need to break down some of the myth and the misinformation that's in our community. We got an uphill battle.
And Harvey, we will probably hear the music in 30 seconds, but I want to give you a chance for some last words.
Yeah, so solution-based, some of the things my wife did for me: Vicks and hot water, breathing, stay hydrated, ginger root, vitamins A, D, and C, green teas, garlic, orange juice, popsicles. And when I couldn't walk, she massaged my feet with Vicks, and 2 days later, I was able to walk. So old school remedies.
Everybody, thank you so deeply. Deep thanks. Be well, stay healthy, be proactive. Let's commune. Don't have to wait for Sunday to commune.
Listen, I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going. Better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gonna be counting blessings. And I know that for certain.